Greeting Earthlings! If you follow the channel, you know that we are resurrecting the Apollo communication system with the original spacecraft and NASA ground equipment. Over many episodes, we got voice going,
Apollo, this is Houston.
Then television,
TV from the moon.
Then the digital data uplink with its clunky paper tape test box, and we are now adding the digital downlink known in Apollo jargon as the PCM telemetry. Over the last few episodes, we wired in and powered up the impressive PCM box. We then put a heartbeat signal on the channel that was used to monitor Astronaut 1's EKG, and were able to recover our simulated heartbeat from the digital telemetry downstream. But the PCM also had digital inputs, and one of these was quite special, reserved for data coming from the Apollo guidance computer. The AGC, as it was known, which we restored in another series of videos, was continuously transmitting its own telemetry, which was passed onto the PCM box, beamed back to Earth, and appeared on the controller's screen. So in this episode, we are going to finally complete our restoration circle. We will attempt to connect the Apollo guidance computer to our comm setup and find out what it was beaming back to Earth. But before we get there, we need to figure out how this is all supposed to work, which will probably go down easier with a bit of elevator music. Let's look at this diagram of the PCM telemetry frame, which we already looked at in previous episodes. You can spot the 5 words used to carry the AGC telemetry, 40 bits at a time, right here. They are labeled 51DS1, A, B, C, D, and E. As we had explained previously, 51 means 50 Hz sampling rate, while DS stands for digital serial. Since these words appear in every frame and they are 50 frames per second in high bit rate, the result is a 2 kilobit per second substream dedicated to the computer data. In low bitrate mode, it is much less, but not as low as I expected. Low bitrate is truly low, 32 times slower than the high bitrate. It has only 1 frame per second, containing 200 words shared by all the measurements. However, the AGC has quite a preferential treatment. You can see its digital words appearing here, words 9 to 13, but then a little later there are more words transmitted, 29 to 33. And if you look closely, you'll realize that this sequence repeats 5 times per frame on words 49 to 53, then 89 to 93, etc., etc. The same repeat pattern happens for the second group of words too. So in total, there are 10 slots of 40 bits reserved in the frame for the AGC telemetry. The resulting transmission rate is 400 bits per second. Not great, but a lot better than a factor 32 slowdown from the high bit rate. This also meant that the AGC occupied a quarter of the total bandwidth in low bitrate mode. Obviously, the computer data was prioritized by Houston controllers. Now let's move to this other part of the drawing where we can see how the AGC, or the CMC as it is called in the command module, is hooked up to the PCM. It's remarkably simple. It requires only 4 connections. At the correct time in the frame, the PCM sends the computer a start pulse, then a clock pulse for each bit it needs from the computer. The AGC responds by sending the bits on another line, which the PCM stores in a pair of redundant shift registers. Once a full word of 8 bits is in, it spits them back out serially, correctly timed and inserted into the data frame, bypassing the complicated multiplexing logic used for the other measurements. This is repeated 5 times, once for each 8-bit word, for the 40 bits burst. After which the PCM issues a stop pulse and goes back to inserting the other regular measurements in the frame. Unfortunately, our restored AGC, which really was not ours, was sold at auction in 2021. So we can't use a real AGC in our setup, at least for now. However, Clever Monkey Mike had made a gate-exact reproduction of the AGC in an FPGA. Its hardware logic circuits are the same as in the original, and it runs the original Apollo core rope programs. Although Mike did not originally intend to use the telemetry from the AGC, the stream should be generated by the software while it's running. We should be able to connect the replica to the PCM with the 4 lines we identified, and if all goes well, it should send telemetry back to Earth as it did in the real mission. There is just one slight complication. The reproduction AGC is an FPGA using modern logic levels at 3.3 volts. On the real AGC, the digital logic was connected to the outside world via interface circuits that isolated the logic using transformers. Looking at the AGC schematics, the data output went through an XT circuit, while the command signal inputs, the start, stop and the clock signal, used Y circuits. Of course, that won't stop Mike. He hunted down the appropriate transformers that would replicate the real AGC I/O signals and set out to breadboard his 4 interface circuits. So Mike, you're making progress, one more interface to the PCM?
Yeah, so I'm wiring up the PCM to AGC interface right now. These are all the I/O circuits for the AGC. So it's all transformer coupled between the PCM and the AGC, so I need some pulse transformers.
So only 4 signals?
Yes. Downlink start, downlink bit sync, downlink end, and then the downlink data.
And you had it on the scope at some point?
Should still be there, I think. Yeah, so the green is the downlink start, which sort of resets the downlink circuitry in the AGC. And then we have 40 bit sync pulses to clock out the telemetry. And then the blue is downlink end, which actually generates an interrupt inside the AGC to reload its downlink output registers. The yellow is actually the PCM data.
Oh, okay.
This little gap here is where all the AGC data is slotted in.
So next step is you turn on your AGC FPGA and you see if it's giving us data.
Yes. Yep. So just a little bit more wiring to do.
Okay.
Moments later.
All right, Mike, you've completed your setup?
I have.
All right.
Yeah. So we've got the AGC running in this FPGA on the DISCI interface board. This is the update link interface that we've had here. And then the new little breadboard here is our PCM interface.
Right. So those are circuits that would be in the AGC itself?
Yes. Yeah. So I have to have these pulse transformers out here to interface with my little FPGA because it can't handle the 12 volt or whatever pulses.
Right. So now we're
PCM.
on the other side of that you are compliant with the rest of the stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that you have had success. I see data coming out of the AGC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the string of pulses that you can see down here is coming right out of the AGC in response to the 3 sort of command signals from the PCM that we were looking at earlier. It's telemetering down a whole bunch of information, which I now need to write some software to decode. But
can you
Yes.
shrink it a little bit so we see how often it does it? Oh, okay. Well, you see it. It's just bzit, bzit, bzit.
Yep.
Right. So it steals a little bit of bandwidth every now and then and downloads everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then what it downloads depends on the program,
It
the
does.
mission, right?
Yep.
It changes all
Yeah,
the time.
it varies from rope to rope, and it depends, you know, on what program you're running. I think because I'm currently in POO, we're running the Coast in a line down list, whereas if we were to go into P63, it would go over to the powered burn down list.
And do you have commands to change what list of stuff it sends down, or is
I don't think so.
premeditated before the mission?
The program table, you know, that says P00, P06, all of the different programs. In addition to what bank that program resides in and what erasable memory bank it needs to use when it starts that program, it also says which down list it should be selecting while running that program. So it's kind of tied to the
every
program.
time it changes programming,
It also changes the
it
down
changes
list.
the down list of
Yeah.
what's important
Yes.
to download.
Yep.
A few moments later.
You see it coming down the pipe?
I do. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
I think.
You need to tilt your computer. Might want to see if I can zoom. Yeah, I can. Oh yeah, there's stuff going on.
Yeah, right there.
AGC is talking to you. Well, we could reset it or disconnect it and see if that stops, right? You want me to do that? Do I just unplug it?
Actually, you can probably press and hold that button.
This one?
The one closest to the wires.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stopped.
Okay.
And now it's back.
Right.
The other thing you can do is flip it down into low bit rate.
Low bit rate. Low bit rate would be over here. Okay, so I'm going to flip that one down while I'm looking at your screen. What should it do?
We're gonna get a lot less frames. They're gonna be a bit.
Oh,
longer.
it will auto sync on the low rate, low bit rate.
It takes a while to.
Yeah, it finishes its frame. Oh, this is way lower.
So the AGC data actually appears multiple times in the low bitrate frames.
So they can still keep it.
It's slower. Like.
It's slower, but it's not as slow as they compensate. They just take more of the bandwidth.
Yeah.
They transmit several times a frame.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's not moving.
What's that?
Is it synced?
Oh,
stop. Oh, because you have it. Not
yeah, it's not triggering super well.
Okay, that's okay. I can. Let me see if I can. There you go.
Ah, okay.
There you go. We have the data. Much slower. Okay, cool. We got data flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to capture it so you can try to understand what it is.
Yep.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
Alright, it looks like we have indeed completed our restoration circle by integrating the AGC with the Apollo comms system. We can observe that the AGC is handing out some data to the PCM, which is in turn stuffing it in the telemetry stream for transmission back to Earth. But we have more work to do to find out what the data is. I, for once, need to build a PCM signal demodulator so we can receive these bits on Earth. Right now we're just looking at them out of the PCM box before they even get modulated into the radio system. Mike will need to extract and decode the AGC data from the received bit stream, which is its own independent data frame inside the PCM data frame. Hopefully I'll need less RF hardware and he'll need less computer hardware than it took at the time. So leave us a little bit of time and we'll see you in the next episode.